ready?
Yeah, let's go this
Stick
guy.
it in.
Open it up.
It just, you were nearly there.
Yeah.
I'm looking at this on YouTube now. I know who to critique. Your email address.
That's right. It was his fault.
You just needed a bit more height on the tripod.
Lovely.
There you go.
Good?
Yeah.
Great, great. Well, I just want to share this because this is the essence of the message, yeah? So when I used to go to the talks and they would say, there is no self or there is no body, but you are hearing it as a body, yeah, and hearing it as a self. It's sort of like, what's the problem when the lion hears the message, I'm a lion? It shouldn't take no time at all. You would think, right?
Yeah.
A lion hears the message, you're a lion, far out. It's like, I already knew that, but thanks a lot, yeah. Reinforced now. It would take no time, wouldn't it? Because it's a lion. Why isn't it that people aren't seemingly getting it, the message, if it's so simple? It's not pointing out anything that's very complex. It's basically saying what you are. You're a lion. But what happens is the mental state is so quick that it catches the message and it hears it as a sheep, yeah? And so now the lion can only entertain being a lion as I can become like a lion. That's it. That's the heist. And it's not getting emphasized enough, so people are looking from the heist instead of seeing the heist. If you see the heist, you won't be looking from the heist, and then you'll get very clearly the message, I'm a lion. Yeah? It won't take any time at all. You may need repetition because time goes on, but it doesn't happen over time. It doesn't take any time at all to get what you are. Yeah? What happens is it will seem to take a lot of time because the mental state is still arising and still going to claim it. It's going to keep attempting to claim the message and turn it into another path, yeah? Another thing you have to do. And if you look at it, it would be insane for a lion to spend any time trying to become like a lion. Would it ever be successful? It could only seem to be successful as a sheep, yes? I mean, because the success has already been completed. It's a lion. Is it going to become more like a lion? Who's going to say what's more like a lion? And also, conversely, what's going to say what's less like a lion, which is what you're going to hear mostly. Yeah, it's insane. So this message can be repeated over and over again, but all the heavy lifting is done. You're a lion. Really. It's not like, we don't have to have a huge dissertation on lionness because you're being lion, yeah? You don't need to study and know what you're being. You need to study and know what you're not. That's what you need to study and know. Yeah?
I'm still a bit stuck on the lion. You don't need to tell the lion he's a lion. Because does a lion actually know they're a lion?
Well, that's the thing. You need to tell the lion it's a lion when it takes itself to be a sheep. And then you realize very quickly it's pointless to tell the lion it's a lion. You just got to point out that it's not a sheep. Yeah? Direct the attention to the false reference, and then the true reference becomes obvious. But you're never going to get to the true reference from the false reference. This is what's really stalling everyone in the pursuit of this message, because you can't pursue this message. You could pursue it if it was anything other than what you are, but you are that. Yeah? So, like I can pursue a latte today in Dublin. I could pursue a pair of trousers, whatever. I was calling them pants, which I found is not the correct statement, at least in England. That means underwear. Because I wanted to go to a thrift store to find a pair of pants. They said, no, do not get any pants at a thrift store. I said, but I've seen pants at a thrift store. No. Then they explained it to me. But, I could look for anything that's not me. I could, yeah. I could study about anything that's not me, but I cannot study about me. I'm being me, yeah. While I'm studying about me, that's being me. See, so the only way all these antics can keep to have such real meaning, there must be an act of being identified as what you're not when you're hearing the message of what you are. It has to be. There's no other way it could be deflected so well and for so long, but through identification is what you're not, yeah? How long really would it take a lion to get that it's a lion? At most, a nanosecond, yeah? But now we can try to become like a lion forever, as a lion. We do, don't we? Yeah. So this is, for me, real spirituality is warnings. That's all it is. It's warning of some basic pitfalls so that you can see them before you're looking out from them. It's best to see the hole before you fall into the hole. Yeah? It just works better. So that's what happened with me when I went to satsangs. I saw, the lion was taking itself to be a sheep, going to meetings about being a lion. And then it felt great, it resonated, but it got captured by the idea that you were a sheep and turned into, I can become like a lion. And non-duality became another path, basically. And it's not a path. It illuminates every path, but it's not a path. Yeah. It's just a negation, not two. We'll turn it on, because we'll just go, and then we'll start again when they get here. You can't time this anyway.
Your clock is going. And
so it's on?
So I think you might be on. Your focus isn't great. You look a lot better in the flesh.
That's all right. Don't worry about it. Yes. My makeup person didn't show up. So. Yeah. But, I just humbly would like to... Yeah. Anybody who knows technology, there we go. All right, great. So, just really attempting to help you save time, really. Because if you are what you're looking for, then it's always available at all times, right where you are. Yeah. With really no requirements necessary to fulfill, you are it already. The mission's already been completed. Yeah. And then that just allows so many more possibilities. If you see what you're not, like it happened with me in recovery, from drugs and alcohol. I've been sober and clean now 29 years. About my 9th year in sobriety, I don't know when, the head cracked open in a different way, and I was reading the statement in recovery that I had read many times, but a whole new information downloaded, which was being convinced that self manifested in various ways. And my feeling of self is that it's the sense of being a long-lasting, independent, separate entity, which is claimed by claiming to be the doer, the thinker, the feeler, yeah, the haver, the loser, all that, yes? So it's the pseudo-one. So when people say it's the ego, it's not, in my view, it's not the ego. Because there's a feeling that you have an ego, and there's a feeling that you can lose an ego. What is that feeling of you that has and loses egos? That to me is the bondage of self, yeah? Yeah. So this statement is very beautiful. It says, being convinced that self, manifested in various ways, is what has defeated us. So, as an addict and alcoholic, it was obvious that was the case. Yeah, I had this thing managing my life always led me to having to be managed by other people. So I had been institutionalized quite a lot, jailed quite a lot, hospitalized quite a lot. So I was very open to this idea. Yeah. So being convinced that self manifested in various ways is what has defeated us. Yeah. We will now look at self's common manifestations in one's life, and then we look at resentments, fears, and acting out to get what you want, yeah? How you harm people in the pursuit of what you want. Now, most people I know, when they talk about a resentment, they call it their resentment. And when they talk about fear, they call it their fear. And when they talk about doing harm to someone, it was their harm that they did, yeah? To me, that's the act of being identified as something that you're not, because it's said very clearly, self manifested in various ways, which are resentments, fears, and harming people in the pursuit of what you want, are manifestations of self. Why would you call them yours unless you were under the act of being identified as that? Yeah? I mean, if Mary was sitting here and I was demonstrating effects of Mary through me, and I kept calling them mine, I would say I must have been under the act of being identified as Mary, or I would have said, hey, these are Marys happening through me. Yes, wouldn't you? I mean, it's obvious. So my feeling is the root of the situation is an activity, which is great news. Yeah. In other words, you never have been a self, you never will be a self, you never were a self. You're not one now, but there's a mental process called the act of being identified as a self that's going on. And if you're intently listening to it or have come to a belief in it, you will be identified as being a body, yeah? And you will be looking at life from a body reference, and not only a body reference, but you will look at life as I'm the doer of the actions, the thinker of the thoughts, the feeler of all the feelings, yeah? That's the bondage of self. It's an activity that you need to be complicit with, yeah? That's why the freedom is always available at all times. You're the freedom, and conversely, you can seemingly be the bondage. And the word seemingly is a key word because it means it's appearing to be true or false to us. Yeah, this is very key to hear. That's an incredible position we're in, that everything appears to either be true or false to us, not based on that condition, but based on our condition. Yeah. Like the Course, if you've heard the Course in Miracles, lesson 2, you and I give everything, all the meaning it has, is a pretty comprehensive statement. It has the word everything in it and all in it. So there's no exemption there, that you and I are giving everything, all the meaning it has. We're dreaming here. That's what's happening. Not as this is the dreamt, because you're seeing it, but we're dreaming here. And in that dreaming, we have this statement in recovery, false evidence appears real, to mean fear, yeah? So it's an acronym, false evidence appears real. But if you look at it, how could false evidence ever appear real? It would have to appear real to what's real, yeah? We're the reality. We're reality, that's what's happening. We're reality in the act of dreaming. And in this dreaming, we seemingly, means it appears to be true to us. It's not true, but it appears to be true to us that we're a body. And then in that condition, we give everything we're dreaming the power to affect us as the body. Sounds like your day, doesn't it? Sure. So if you own a thought and you call it yours, the thought can own you, doesn't it? If you own a feeling, the feeling can own you. When you say it's my feeling, watch out. It may have you. Because you've now given it all the power it has. Swear to God. I've seen it. I've seen the whole thing. So this is the important point that the message has gotten down to. There's no other point to really talk about, because if this isn't clear, it's going to be a shadow that's going to follow you. So not all the meditation in the world is still going to be used to imply the meditator. You can't do yourself out of the doer. You can't think yourself out of the thinker. You can't feel yourself out of the feeler. It's impossible. The feelings will be claimed to imply the feeler. The meditation will be claimed to point to the meditator. Yes? The epiphany. You ever have an epiphany or whatever? An epiphany occurred to you? where there was an intervention in the linear story of life, but it usually ends with this thought: I'm having an epiphany. You know, didn't notice that? As soon as you show up and claim it, it seems to go. That's it. That's the thief. It's you, basically, wearing, a weird outfit, but it's you. So, so when you go to meetings and you hear you're not a body, I'm telling you, you're hearing it as a body. Yeah? When you hear the gloriousness of oneness, you're hearing it from two-ness. Yeah? I mean, it's not going to work. Yeah? Just see what you're not, and then find out what you are. Instead of trying to find out what you are from what you're not, just find out what you're not, and you'll see what you are. Yeah? You'll be seeing from what you are. This is the way this is the only way it seemed to work with me. If you're thinking, there's a great master, heard of Ramana Maharshi, yes? So a lot of his writings, and I've been riffing on this for years, because it's perfect beginning and end point, where he says, or he had said, and his people write it down in the various books they do of him, he says, there's a presupposing of a non-existent thing. Now what is the non-existent thing? Yeah? Have you ever seen someone you knew dead? I had a very strong experience when I was 9. I had an Uncle Fred. He used to always give me money at relative parties, behind his back, so my mother wouldn't see. He'd give me $1. So he won my love, bought it, really. And then he died, and my mother, we were at the funeral, and he was in an open casket. My mother wanted me to go and say goodbye to Uncle Fred. So I looked at Uncle Fred's body, and instantaneously I had to hit, that ain't Uncle Fred, yeah? Because the aliveness that was enlivening the body was gone. And I had been thinking the body was the aliveness, but it was obvious when the body was there without the aliveness that it wasn't the body, yeah? I mean, clear as day. That just was not Uncle Fred. So we're always, in a sense, seemingly in the mistake of taking what we are to be a body, yeah? And the whole thought system, its whole role is to reinforce and support that idea. If you watch the thought system pictures us as a body. Yeah? You couldn't be thought about as spirit 3 years ago. How could you think about spirit 3 years ago? Or how could you think about future spirit? How could you tell? Would it be any different than now? You can sit here if you like. Not here, but whatever. Okay. Yeah, but not right that close. Move over a little bit. A little space.
Shower.
You're my substitute. If I run out, jump right into the breach. Don't miss a beat. Just say, there is no self. All right? I'll look at you, there is no self. So the thought system, see it in your own little laboratory. The thought system pictures us as bodies, yeah? So when you're remembered, let's say 3 years ago, you're pictured as a body, aren't you? I mean, you can't think of yourself any other way, really. You can think of yourself as a spirit, but framed as a body. You can't escape the frame. The thought system cannot escape the limits of the thought system. Yeah? So when the thought system thinks about us, it thinks about us as a body. So you go, oh, what was I doing 3 years ago? You can only be pictured as a body 3 years ago, yeah? And then when you're worrying about you, in the future, that you is pictured as a body, yeah? Just check it out yourself. You can take 1 minute, you'll see it, yeah? So, and that's another form of remembering. The worrying about you in the future is a remembering of being a self now. Nothing escapes now. There is no past or future. They're being entertained now, yeah? Nothing escapes now. There's no added or subtracted from now. That's all there is. So the thought system pictures us as a body in the past. And it pictures us as a body in the future when it's worrying about us. But they're both forms of remembering ourselves as a body now. Yeah? So the logic of the mental state is, I was there as a body, I will be there as a body, therefore I am here as a body. Because it can't just go here and run the story of being a body. It's seen through quite easily here. Yeah? But in the past, that's all there is you as a body. And in the future, all there is you as a body. And there's no other God in the past and the future than self. Self is the God of time. Yeah? The spirit or the awareness is only met now. Yeah? It's not met 8 years ago, nor will be met 5 years ago. It's met completely, incessantly now. So the mental state, didn't make you ever suspicious that the mental state, the thought system is happening now, but it's all about yesterday and tomorrow? So obviously in its activity, it's implying it has no value in now, or it wouldn't be thinking, really. So it's got to give you some clues. It's like a GPS, a failed GPS. Its maps are from like 1840. They suck. You punch in, I like to be happy, joyous, and free, and I was always arrested that night. Yeah? So obviously it was failing me, but there was such an incredible devotion to it because you've taken it to be you. This is the dilemma I ran into with this idea of self. My wanting to be free was captured by, I want to be free as a self. Just like people at these talks, they want to be here to get it. But it's your seemingly being here that makes it something that you don't have. Yeah? So you're willing to suffer this act of thinking that you don't have, which is always available, just with the hopes that you'll be there to get it later. It's a bad deal. Extremely bad deal. So if you see the thought system, and if there's faith in the thought system, watch. If we're sitting here and you're having a bad time right now, you're obviously not responding to now. You're reacting to yesterday and tomorrow. And most people who are bummed out now aren't bummed out about today. They're bummed out about last week and next week. What is that but an interpretation? If what's not happening can overpower what's happening, it has to have what's happening on its side. You've got to be believing what's not happening as the reality to have it override what's happening. Because otherwise, it's a total impossibility. Next week isn't happening. How could it produce effects? How could 3 years ago produce effects now? The only thing that can produce effects now is us. We are the reality. False evidence appears real to what's real. That's it. Yeah? We're dreaming in a sense. So the thought system, the memories, and the perceptions are all there reinforcing, presupposing, assuming, implying that there's a someone there. A someone that is cast as the doer, the thinker, the haver, the feeler. Yes? So it uses the feelings and the thoughts and the actions to facilitate the bondage of self. The thoughts, the feelings, and actions do not bond you to self. It's the identification as the self that bonds you seemingly to it. Yeah? It uses thoughts, feelings, and reactions to continue it because the bonding, the glue, has to constantly be applied to seem to stick because it's no stickability. You're untouchable completely. Nothing's ever really happened to you, ever. Everything's happening, but nothing has culminated into a happening. You and I are the only reality there is, simply. Yeah? If we believe something, it will seem to be so. If we don't believe it, it will seem not to be so. Yeah? I've seen it in recovery. People come in, they have a huge story about the worst thing that ever happened to them. They built an altar to it. It's been used as excuses from failed marriages and fucking unbelievable stuff. And then they just come under the effects of recovery, and then they see the same event as the best thing that ever happened to them. You've got to be a little suspicious there. How could the worst thing somehow just magically transmute into the best thing? It's neither, obviously, yeah? It's how we see it. And completely everything is how we see it. Nothing is seeing us here. at all. We're seeing everything else. So, we used to use this thing in the talks at home. You put money up there, health and sex, let's say, everyone would have a response based on what their seeming condition, yeah? I'm going to change the word completely without changing the word at all. I'm going to change the word completely without changing any letter in it. My money, my health, my sex. So I wish everyone in this room to have a lot of money, but I don't want you to have any of my money. That's the activity. That's the activity of us as dreaming. There is a lot of meaning being distributed from us through the word my to thoughts, feelings, and topics, yes? And then that meaning is used to define you. So as the Course says, you and I are dreaming this dream. We forget that we're dreaming. How the hell could that happen? It can't happen, but it can seemingly happen, yes? So when it seemingly happens, that which we are has become identified as a body. In this condition, suddenly everything I'm dreaming is now given the ability to affect me. That's what happens here all day. And then when you think you're the observer of it, that's in the mix. There's no observer. It's all content. What you're thinking an observer is another mental state. Yeah. What you are is behind the camera, what you're not is in front of the camera, and never the two shall meet. Yeah? That's the message. You are what you're looking for. The seeker is the sought. Yeah? So this Ramana Maharshi says a beautiful thing. There's a presupposing of a non-existent thing that wants to get salvation for the non-existent thing. And this is the assumption. The assumption comes after conscious contact. That's the day, right? You're seeing, hearing, feeling, tasting, touching. And this idea comes after the conscious contact, but it presupposes that you're before the conscious contact. This is the heist. That which comes later implies that it's before. Suddenly, when it becomes the before comes later. So now you start looking for the before from what came after. That's why you never find it, because you're the before. Yeah? So he says, all right, if this is the case, what happens? Your spiritual practices themselves will be reinforcing the non-existent thing. How can they destroy the non-existent thing? And that's what happens. Yes? So all the incredible traditions, thousands of years, this is what can happen. I'm not saying it does, but it's very, very likely. The desire to get out of something, yeah, is because you really believe you're in something. And if you try to get out of an imaginary place, that's only going to give a reality to the imaginary place. So your wanting to get out of it produces the reality of being in. That's why you cannot escape from where you're not. Yeah? And the point is, the beautiful point is, how long would it take to get out of an imaginary place? No time. When would that be available? Now. Where would it be available? Here. Will it ever be a different now and here? No. Wherever you are, it will be now and here. So it's always available at all times, right where you are, with no requirement necessary other than the ones you make up. That's it. So it's in the seeing of what you're not is what you are. You will see what you're not. And what you're not is just a suggestion by an activity. A mental activity called the act of being identified as a self. If you buy it at that point, it will presuppose you to be before everything. That's what it does. And now suddenly you're the one who's conscious, you're the one who's seeing, you're the one who's hearing, you're the one who's feeling, you're the one who's tasting, you're the one who's thinking. And this is what causes so much confusion, because you believe, if I'm thinking these thoughts, they should listen to me. You know, if these are my thoughts, why aren't they behaving? I have a really important job tomorrow, and I want them to stop at 11, and they can start up at 8 a.m., but I need 9 hours of thoughtless sleep. And then you're up at 1, 2, 3, 4, and it's frustrating because you've been put in a position of power, but you have no power because you've been proclaimed as the thinker of the thoughts. It's sort of like, you feel like I'm running and you stop running, don't you? You don't want to run at night, you don't run at night, do you? You're not running, and so I really wish I could stop running, but I keep running, It seems like you can say no, or I'm reaching and stop reaching, and I stop reaching, but have you ever seemingly stopped thinking? Have you ever left anything alone? Or does it go back 30 years like a forensic unit and go over fucking shit that never even happened? It's out of hand because its job is to reflect you as the thinker. That's all its point is. It has no intent other than that. All the thoughts, 70,000 of them supposedly, let's say you recognize, maybe you sense 3,000 of them a day. 3,000 doesn't matter, but they're being used to indicate the thinker 3,000 times a day. All the feelings that are being generated are being used to indicate the presupposed to imply the feeler. That's their intent. All the actions always point to one actor, every one of them. It's like every donkey gets pinned with the same tail and is pointing at you. There isn't a you, but all the pointing, the mind makes the leap into being that which is being pointed at. And now you take yourself to be a body, and now you proceed from there. And if you're a body, how can you be spirit? So all you can do is try to get some spirit. Let's say become spiritual. But in fact, you're spirit in a sense. You're not of thingness. There's a freedom available, humbly. Yeah. And its translation here will be a traveling lighter. Over a very stabilized, long amount of time, and you'll know the tree by its fruits. Yeah. There'll be an ease and comfort where there wasn't any. Your condition won't be based on circumstances or physical, mental, financial, other conditions. You'll have a base of ease and comfort instead of irritable, restless, and discontent. You will not be seeking for what cannot be found. That's for sure. You will lose all interest in the need to be liberated because what needs to be liberated is not you. What you are does not need liberation. Yeah? And then the cart will be behind the horse, and you'll see blue is blue and red, and things will become much simpler for you. You won't have any metaphysical questions. You'll have questions like, where are my keys and shit, Really. And it will stabilize. And I'm humbly telling you, this is not an experience. You're not going to have it. Ever. It's what you are. You're so beyond experience, you are it. It's like we're like fish in the water and we believe we're dry. And we go to meetings about wetness to see if we can entertain being wet someday. But we're totally immersed. We're totally drenched. Yeah, at all times. But we just don't think so. You would never go there. It's always the bridge is you think so. It's the thinking that makes it seem to be so. As Jesus says, as you think, so it is, seemingly. That's the case. That's the magic little trick. Yeah. The thinking makes it seem to be so. But if they're not your thoughts, you lose interest in them. Like a thought that's driving you crazy never drives me crazy. But the same thought, if I called it mine, would have the ability to drive me crazy. It's not the thought, is it? It's the identification with the thought that gives it an incredible amount of power. It's our power being transferred. Yeah? We're like we're worried about the bank getting robbed, and they're just moving the cash right in front of us all day. It's just constantly, we're like, what? Oh, but I'm going to put a big security. So no, it's just they're just taking the cash out constantly. False evidence appears real. It needs you to appear real too. That's going to be based on your condition, not the evidence. It's false. Yeah. but it can appear real to you. So there's a thing, I shared this in England. I went to Istanbul, Turkey. I was around the world trip. Went there for 5 weeks, and when you get there, you go to like the Sophia and the Blue Mosque, and then a couple of us gathered, tourists, and a guy with a really nice gray suit, very elegant looking, stepped up and said, "Hey, I'll show you around." So seemed like a nice guy, so he took us around, and we're checking everything out. Then he brought us to a big brick building, sort of like across the street, and he knocked on a door, and suddenly a guy that looked quite like him came, said hello, and he left. I never saw him again. Then they bring us in. They go, "What's your name?" I go, "Paul." They go, "Mr. Paul, do you want some Irish, Turkish coffee, some, apple juice?" I said, "Yeah, I'll have some apple juice." So they start giving me apple juice, and suddenly they start coming out, all these guys with these suits, with rugs and twirling these rugs, and there's beautiful lights going on, and it's a huge demonstration. You're sitting there, and then I got more apple juice, sure, and I'm sitting there for a couple hours, and they're going on and on and on and on. But I had an immunity to the whole advertising because didn't have a flaw. I didn't have a flaw. I didn't have a house. What would make me interested in a rug is if I had a flaw. I had no flaw. I was traveling around the world. So it was beautiful. I would have bought it if I had a flaw. But I don't have a flaw. So they're going, "Well, we could fold it up and put it in your knapsack." I go, "I'm not going to take a Turkish rug to Thailand." You know what I mean? It absolutely makes no sense to me. So I could have been there for 3 months and I wouldn't have bought a rug. Why? Because there was no flaw. This is the message. If there is no sense of self, none of the shit that the sense of self is the producer of can be produced. Yeah? The fabrication, the image of it may, but there won't be any weight to it. You will hear thoughts, but you will not be listening to thoughts. Yeah? There will be feelings and sensations, but they won't be yours. The freedom is not having great feelings all day. It's seeing you're not the feeler. You never were the feeler. And if it ever dawns on you, literally, what's going to download in that dawning is that it's always been this way, that nothing had ever happened. This is no place you've ever arrived at. Even though it seemed like you arrived there and it hits you, in the arrival there, it tells you nothing had ever happened. It's always, always been this way. So basically, the idea of getting somewhere and it took time gets erased in no time, like that. Yeah? You see that you were dreaming. And only what dreaming can only reach to is a level of seemingly so. It can never become real. Because you are the only reality there freaking is. You are the only thing that's happening. Completely. Everything else can only seem to be so to you. It's like, look at the mental state. It's agitated, yeah? So let's say you fall into peace. How long can you enjoy it before it says, "Will I have peace tomorrow?" As soon as time gets in, there goes the peace. And there is no time without self. And there is no self without time. So your idea, your ability, have you noticed, let's say for me, the head, this was the theme the head had in my life before. It was like when things were going really good, it got really worried. When are they going to find out that I'm an asshole and I don't deserve any of this? But if there was a hint that it was going bad, I was entering a lifelong depression. Do you want that to be the theme setter? That it's going to squish all the possibility of good and openness and then just elongate all the fucking dark stuff? Do you want that to be the theme setter? Do you want to live under that interpretation? If your faith lies in the thought system, it's going to produce tons of anxiety out of what's not happening. It's not the thought system that's producing it, it's faith. It's your juice. Everyone in this room has tons of faith, and we're at the effect of it right now by the vehicle it's put in. If the vehicle is the thought system, you're going to be flipped out about what's not happening. That same faith, if directed in a different, like you ever see the Course in Miracles, they talk about the Holy Spirit, yeah? In recovery, you call it the higher power. It's all us anyway. But what it is it takes the same information the selfing is making up the story from, It uses that same information but produces a whole different result. Yeah? The same data, the same information, the same perceptual stimuli that's been taken in, it can be collated differently. Yeah? One will allow you to see life is happening, and the other defines you as life's happening to me. It's a total interpretation. It's not satisfying, is it? It may be telling you it's going to get satisfying, but is it satisfying? Now, if I was a furniture salesman, furniture store, I made furniture, and every order I ever was given, I made, it got there exactly on time, just as it was supposed to be. Would I need any excuses, rationale, stuff like that? Check your heads. How much excuses and rationales go into that? It's a failed system. It doesn't deliver the goods. It tells you you were once maybe okay, and it hopes you will be okay, but in fact, you're not okay, seemingly. What drives the seeking? Agitation. What happens if agitation meets peace? It gets agitated over it. And selfing is described in the Buddhist terminology, the Theravada or whatever, the Buddha, the Four Noble Truths. One of them is desire is the cause of the malaise, whatever. But what is the initial desire? It's the desire to become something and unbecome what you think you are. That's selfing. That's all it is. It's agitated. It's like a slinky going down an eternal staircase. You want to become what you don't think you are, and you want to become what you think you are, unbecome what you think you are, on and on and on. It can never fulfill its desire, so it's agitated completely all the time, because it can never be a self, because you're something else already. You're not of thingness, and you can't be replaced. So it's a thwarted desire. Your mental state is based on a thwarted desire. On and on and on. It stretches out in time to prove that it has a long-lasting effect. It's all dreaming. You've never been touched. You're not like, I can't use an Irish sky as the example because it's usually overcast and wet or something. But if you've ever seen a sky in California, it's big and open and bright. And you know, the sky has never become a cloud. It's had millions of clouds move through it. It's never become a cloud. Yeah? The sky doesn't get wet when it rains. The earth does. There's not, when a plane flies through the sky, it doesn't call the tower and say, I ran into a big chunk of sky today. It doesn't. When a bird shits, it doesn't land on the sky. It lands on your car and stuff. Yeah? This is like mind is like, big M mind. It's incredibly empty. No matter what has appeared in it, has never left an effect on it. You can rest there. It doesn't promote agitation. It promotes extension and expansion and space. That's what it promotes. It promotes inclusiveness. It erases this or that. And you have you know what's better than fucking enlightenment? Enough. You arrive at enough. Really, literally. You realize nothing is the gift that keeps on giving. And if I've ever done a good job with these talks, you've gotten nothing from them. And if you come back, people come back after 8 years seeing me and they go, is there anything? No, same fucking nothing, every time. We don't have intensives, we don't have retreats because I have too much respect for mind. Yeah? And I learned a long time ago, we are never talking to you about being a mind. We're talking to mind about you. Every talk, the ball is being thrown over the head. You are never going to get mind, but mind can get you. And when mind gets you, it sees you as what it's not. Yeah? That's all that was necessary for me. When I saw that the self was a foreign installment or like a parasitical movement, the next possibility that became available until at that point hadn't been available was I can be free from it. because my freedom had been co-opted by the identification. I had been trying to be free as a self since I was about 7 years old. I was trying to be free for the self, through the self, by the self, but the freedom is from self. That's the freedom from the bondage of self. It's from. Yeah. Once I saw it as foreign, I could entertain, hey, I can be free from it. And so it started to take effect, yes? It had traction, not in a conceptual, intellectual way. I mean, where the rubber meets the road, yeah? As this action figure, I started traveling lighter, no matter what the geography of this life was, yeah? And then I realized, what the hell more do you want than that? If you had an ease and comfort that was stabilized and a contentment and satisfaction, you wouldn't care about enlightenment at all. Forget, you drop that whole fucking idea. If most of us would be so much better off if we had never heard about awakening. Because the mental state claims it and uses it to punish you. And enlightenment, which supposedly means a cessation of all suffering, at these talks is being used to produce suffering. What insanity, isn't it? That's freaking insane. That the topic of the talk could be your own destruction. Fucking swear to God, that person's enlightenment or not enlightened. That's the worst. Or the worst is you were awake once and you've blown it somehow. And of course you're written into the whole story. I must have done something. It was me. You can't blow what you are. You're being it right now. You've never not been it. And there's no need to get into the moment. You can't be out of a moment. And there's no need to get out of self. You can't be in self. Literally. Yeah? It will take no time at all to be where you are. The thing is, it won't look like you were expecting it to look. It may not be glorious. It may not look that exciting. I swear to God. You much rather be having it. I'd much rather go to Peru and paint my face and lick a toad and have a huge effect that I could say, that was the moment my life changed. And I could write tons of blogs about it. But this is nothing to fucking say. It's ordinary. Totally, completely ordinary. If it was very infrequent and rare, it would be extraordinary. But it isn't. It's beyond and before all experiences. It's not an experience. That would be such a pointless endeavor. It's beyond. It's what we are. And if you watch the consciousness today, the seeing, hearing, feeling, tasting, touching, just look at it. Has it ever displayed any thought or effort to be conscious? Does your seeing have any volition involved in it? If your eyes are open, and you took a vow today not to see a bird, and your eyes were open and a bird flew by this, you would see the bird. Yeah. There's no volition in it, and there's no thought and effort. I don't go to seeing classes, like practice seeing and hearing. Maybe if I have pictures of saints, I'll see better. No, it's because it's being what it is. Yeah? When you're trying to do yourself into being, it looks like a lot of thought and effort. But how could you expect thought and effort to bring you back to that which shows no thought or effort? You're in the wrong vehicle. There's no vehicle whatsoever. So this lovely story, I like to read too. This is a nice one. I used this in England, if I can find it. I couldn't take the book with me because of Ryanair. It was too heavy. So I had to rip the pages off. Out of principle, I'm not giving Ryanair any extra money. Really, what a robbery. Jesus Christ, if you make one mistake, 35 pounds. You know what I mean? Jeez, I thought they were going to weigh us. My hair is over 3 inches, 35 pounds. It's crazy. Insane thing. What, all out of fear of not having money? Fucking crazy, man. I'm going to live like high on the hog while I'm here. If I could. You know how when you were young, you would like, oh, I saved 200 of that ticket. I had 35-hour layover or something. Yeah, fuck, I saved $35. Those days are over. I want my comfort. Yeah, Ryanair. I'm very upset with them. They're like the people. They're holding people hostage. Jesus Christ. All right, so here's a great little. Oh, I lost the thing. Story by Ramana. So just follow it a little, yeah, if you can. So here it goes. So a lady is wearing a necklace around her neck. For the people who hear me all the time, you've heard this many times. But it's much better live, isn't it? Yeah, hopefully. A lady is wearing a necklace around her neck. Usually that's where they're placed, yes? She forgets it. Now I would put seemingly everywhere in this. Seemingly. She believes she forgot it. She did not forget it, yeah? But she believes she forgot it. This is your role. You got to see the role you're in here. You're not a little action figure that's getting, affected all day by unseen adverse winds, That's dreaming. We're dreaming, yeah? So here, she forgets it, imagines it to be lost, yeah? And impulsively looks for it here, there, and everywhere. She sounds like it's all about her, yeah? Yes? It's all about her, these first few sentences. This is selfie. Not finding it, she asks her friends if they have found it anywhere, until one kind friend points to her neck and tells her to feel the necklace around the neck. The seeker does so and feels happy the necklace is found. Again, when she meets her other friends, they ask her if her lost necklace was found. She says yes to them, as if it were lost and later recovered. Her happiness on rediscovering it around her neck is the same as if some lost property had been recovered. In fact, she never lost it nor recovered it. Oops, what? But she was so super bummed out when she thought she lost it, and she's super joyous when she thought she found it. But did she lose it? And did she find it? No, it had never gone anywhere. And yet she was once miserable, and now she is happy. So also with the realization of the truth. The truth is always realized. You get that? It's present tense now. The truth is always realized. Now, if you're not the truth, then maybe it will someday be realized. But if you are the truth, which I humbly am attempting to imply, if you, by pointing out what you're not, I'm not saying you are the truth, but you definitely are not what thinks it's not the truth. Let's put it that way, yeah? Yeah? So if you are the truth, yeah, then that realization is always realized. So in fact, we're in the always realizedness right now. But because it's always realized, we don't recognize it as a realization because we don't have anything to compare it with. Because we've never been unrealized to compare the unrealization with a realization to claim, oh, I'm realized now. We're always completely realized. So then the game of realizing and unrealizing is a game, just like the losing and the finding of the necklace that was never lost or found. What is that but dreaming? We're dreaming something that's always available isn't always available. And then when we don't find it, we're bummed out as if it wasn't available. And then when we find it, it suddenly now is available, but the joy of it is that it wasn't available, but it was always available. If you take you out of the equation, when is it available? Now. And where? Here. So the realization is now, so also with the realization of the truth, the truth is always realized. The realization is now obscured. The realization is now obscured. You're not going to have a realization. The always realized realization is now obscured. See, now this is getting much clearer because we're thinking we're going to have a realization of something. But in fact, there's an obscuring, yeah, of the always realization. And looking for a realization from it is the form of obscuring it. One of the greatest forms of obscuring it is looking to get realized. Because in that looking to get realized, there is a denial of the always realizedness. You see? It's so beautiful. Because that which would be demand effort and time is seen not to be so. Hallelujah. It's better than 50 Thai massages. There's a relaxation that comes over you that cannot be produced. It's like an that just stays. You don't go, you just, and then it's a whole new way of breathing. Yeah, and now you're just much more chilled out. And then you realize that's all you ever wanted. Because you didn't have it, seemingly, you made up names for it. But in fact, when you get it, there's no name needed. And you'll lose interest in all the name chasing. And maybe you, I don't know, it happened with me. I don't know what will happen when it comes to you. But for me, man, it seemed absurd. Like a great Zen master said, you can't use the Buddha to seek the Buddha. A great Zen master named Huang Po. And Huang Po was really cool to me because a guy who was following him was a scribe for the emperor's court, so the shit was written down that night when he spoke it. It's not like 300 years later. The guy was right there. He knew how to write. He wrote down what Huang Po was saying, so it's pretty close to the horse's mouth, yeah? Yeah. So he says, you cannot use the Buddha to seek the Buddha. You cannot use big M mind to seek mind. You cannot use light to seek light. You can try it for eons. Nothing's going to happen. Now, you could use the Buddha to seek anything else. Anything else in all the worlds of the worlds, you could use the Buddha, but you can't use it to seek the Buddha. Now, he didn't say this to punish us because he knows we're not the Buddha and we should be seeking the Buddha. No, he's implying we're the Buddha. And you may be in the process of seeking the Buddha as the Buddha. And guess what? I'm here to save you some time. You can do it for eons and nothing's going to happen. What? Oh, yeah. Thanks, Huang Po. Appreciate it. Put the book down and move on. Like a warning on a cigarette pack, where it says this could be hazardous to your health. This should be stamped on every spiritual book before the author's page, saying, hey, there's a presuppose you're a non-existent thing that's buying this book to try to get salvation for the non-existent thing through this book. Fuck the book. There you go. Isn't that logic? I don't see where else it could go. So, all right, back to this one. So, her happiness on rediscovering around her neck is the same as if some lost property had been recovered. In fact, she never lost it nor recovered it. And yet she was once miserable. Now, this is the trickiness of it. She was miserable when she believed she lost it. And the whole story was based on her losing it, but she never lost it. So what was the story based on? False evidence appearing real. To who? Her. False evidence was appearing real that she could lose that which can never be lost. And because it appeared real to be true, she was bummed out. But in fact, that was a causeless effect. Yeah? It talks about in the Course in Miracles, the whole book. A causeless effect. In other words, an imaginary thing we're believing is seemingly producing effect, but it's us that's producing the effect by believing the false evidence to be true. We're doing it. We're not being done to here. This isn't victimization. We're dreaming. So it goes, realization is this, so the ever-present realization appears to be a new realization. Yeah. That's what's happening. Yeah. That's what's happening now. Who would come to a meeting about always realized? I'd rather watch a movie, basically. What kind of value would always realizedness have? None. Because we want to have the story of being bummed out when we weren't realized so that we can feel great when we are realized. But in fact, it's always realized. And when it's not an experience, there may be an incredible boredom of the mental state because there's no parades being set, You may not even have a loving gaze, really. You may not speak in monotones and take long pauses. You may say fuck Ryanair quite a lot. This is going to happen. It's true. This is a seat assignment. I'm like a mailman. You've already been served the spiritual subpoena. I do not want to go in and read the letters with you. You got the message, yeah? And it doesn't take much. I have too much faith in mind. I don't think mind needs a dissertation. I think it needs an invitation. Because when the lion gets the message it's a lion, fucking takes no time at all. Let's just see if we're a sheep or not. If we're not the sheep, then maybe, just maybe, you're the lion. So, questions? When did we start? 7:30. All right.
I hear so much about, there's nothing to do, and there's, we're already realized, and I get it, and I intellectually understand it, and I believe it, and yet there is something to do because nothing's happening, so it's kind of, I understand the message, but there must be a practical side to doing something, even if that is
There's tons of practical sides of doing something. I mean, you're an action figure, seemingly, yeah? You're going to do a lot of shit.
But to do it with the realization that, I am awareness, and that's going to be...
Don't do that. Don't say I am awareness. Just see what you're not, and then you'll be awareness.
So the practical side of the activities to be done are looking at what you're not and confirming to yourself you're not those things.
You don't need to confirm to yourself, but if you have it as to use anything, use the self-inquiry. So when there's worrying about next week, just ask, who is it that's worrying about next week? You don't have any opinion about next week. You're just going to use it to point back instead of using it to be where the tail goes on for the donkey.
So it's a matter of just staying in that, repeating that over time to retrain your brain to think in a different way, and then things start to change over time.
No, it isn't that. It isn't that. I'm telling you, it's going to be much quicker than you think. Just listen to the talks. Anyone's been listening to the talks for a while? Are you traveling lighter? There you have it.
Yeah, I'm traveling lighter.
So you'll hit a point where that will be more than enough, and then probably more traveling lighter will occur. Yeah? Enough, man. What more do you want? You're traveling lighter. What's traveling light going to do? It's going to be get more traveling lighter. Let it do its thing. Yeah? Trust the process. Like the old great Zen saying, faith mind. Have faith in mind. At least you can come to the realization of the Course, which it says, you and I are the dreaming of the dream. Yeah? And we're going to dream ourselves out of the dream. And as we do, it'll get happier. So here we are. That's what's happening right now. This is happening seemingly in dreaming, and we're using this to dream ourselves out of the dream. And as we do, you'll get happier. It'll get happier, or you'll travel lighter, if you want to say it that way. And really, you'll reach a point where that's enough. And then that which it isn't enough for isn't you. Just question it. When it keeps putting up and saying, I'm putting my foot down, I've got to get more of this, it's not you. Don't let it, you don't have to pledge allegiance to that flag anymore. This is what happened humbly. I'll try to explain something that happened with me. First time I went to a satsang, I went in there, and it didn't matter what the lady was saying. And please don't rush up and ask who it was. It wasn't that important. But it was important was the space. And also, I'm telling you humbly, mind precedes anything. You can read something that the person who wrote it has been proven to be 100% charlatan, and you could have made it the greatest thing you ever read. Mind precedes everything. The dreaming precedes everything. There is no right and wrong to the dreaming. It will make the worst wrong into a right. It can be. Yeah. It can do anything. It's taken people's lives that the persons would have said, this is worthless, and turned it into a huge treasure trove to help other people. There's nothing that it cannot do in the dreaming. Yeah? So there is no perfect way. There's just any fucking way it wants to use, basically. And what the Course would point out, some of them may take a lot of time. So if you want to save some time, why don't you just go right to the realization, I need do nothing. Because all the other shit you're going to do is going to lead you to it anyway. Yeah? What systems can show you is that they're failed, and how do they show it to you? They'll fail you. So you'll be practicing tons of time, and then it'll dawn on you, fuck, this doesn't work. Well, that's was his service, was not to work. So then you're left with your own devices. I saw this happen once. I was reading a Buddhist magazine, a beautiful Buddhist magazine called Tricycle in America. I don't know if they have it here. So I was reading it, and in there was an op-ed by a famous meditation teacher, just one page, and it was saying the strange occurrence kept happening. All these long-time students were getting in touch with him and saying, hey, nothing fucking really happened. I read that, and that was that. Canceled the subscription to Tricycle. Why the hell would I think it was going to produce a different result? These people did 25 more years than I'm going to do, and they just told me it hasn't gone anywhere. Fuck it, I'm getting off that bus. I was with a woman who was called the Light Junkie at this incredible, insane Course in Miracles group. She was having light inversions and Kansa Kundalini, everything, and she told me it didn't mean a damn thing. Thank you. Saved me a lot of fucking time. Yes? This is dreaming yourself out of this dream. It's not a phenomena. It's not an experience. It's your basic state. You are that which you're looking for. Yeah. Yes.
Is the dream over then? I mean,
the dreaming, no. It's happening now. There is no dream. That would be a thing. There's dreaming. This is just my humble take. Everything is verbing. There's no noun to be found. Yeah? So everything is happening, but nothing ever really happened. Nothing ever stops to happen. Yeah? It's happening. Yeah? Verbing. Verbing. No noun to be found. The mental state tries to make sense of it by putting nouns in there, but there are no nouns to be found. Nothing has ever happened to me. It's just an interpretation. It's just the way my mental state wants to see it. What would happen if things were just happening, and then you put yourself in there? Suddenly your position gives everything else direction and meaning. Now it's seen as happening to you. If the noun gets removed, it's just happening. If you put a rock in the water, now the eddies and the currents changed. And maybe you don't like those currents and eddies, but if you take the thing, the water will just go moving again like normal. It's you that play the biggest role in everything. So where was I? I was trying to go somewhere. Oh, yeah. So I went to this talk. And, this is realizations when you have realizations. They're very safe, right? I'm much clearer. I'm very clear, incredibly open, and I'm more open than others, and this and that. But what happens with this message is it goes like this. Bump, 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 whoop, and then you're seen completely. So you get a glimpse of what's in front of the camera from behind the camera, which makes it very clear that this is not behind the camera. So end of story there. All right, great Huang Po said, whatever can be perceived can't be perceiving. So all of you are off the game board as bodies. Like that. So I was at this talk, and so I put my hand up, and I said, I came in here, and I was observing some mental states and emotional states and physical states. But there was an assumption that was me observing it. And then the aperture had opened up a little more, and I saw that was a mental state claiming to see the other states. Yeah. So then I left, and I was reading books, and I was entertaining ideas, and it seemed like my aperture was opening. But what would happen is it would open, and suddenly there'd be a proclamation. I'm seeing all this fucking shit. But then it would open more and include that claiming of being the seeing on the other side of the camera. And it happened about 8 times where the mental state arose, claimed to be the one seeing itself, yeah. Then the camera moved back farther, it got caught with its pants down, or like the emperor has no clothes, yeah. And then whoops, they went, and then another opening, and it claimed that, and then it happened 8 times, and then it was like the 100 monkey syndrome. It had needed 8, and then just went bing, and I realized the mental state's always going to arise and claim, yeah, its own absence, really. It will say it was there when it was absent, yeah. So then it was seen, and then that was that. I didn't have to like have a statement to say, oh, I'm not that. It was just, I just got that. That's what is going to happen, yeah? And anything that arises cannot be me. I'm the seeing of anything that arises, yeah? And I'm never going to be seen. Never, ever. I'm never going to be heard. I'm never going to be felt. I'm never going to be tasted. I'm never going to be touched. What I am is never going to be experienced. It's just doing everything, yeah? Any more questions? It's so cool to be in Ireland. I'm really, really happy. I'm happy to see people who have only seen me on the internet. Really. Because when people used to come in my past life and recognize me, I duck, But now there's like a lot of, very nice. Thank you so much. Very, very joyous for me. Yes.
We were speaking about salvation and like before and after. Could you please repeat what you were saying about this seeking salvation? Like what is seeking salvation cannot, because I missed.
Yes. So the non-existent thing, in other words, that which you're not, right, is seeking salvation for the non-existent thing. You see something off there? It doesn't make any sense, yes? The only way it can make sense if you take yourself to be the non-existent thing, because then you would be supplying with the one ingredient it can't supply, which is the existing part. So now you're being identified as a non-existent thing, and that fuels the looking for salvation, but now it's for the non-existent thing instead of from the non-existent thing, yeah? It's the same drive, but being misdirected based on the identification as the non-existent thing. The non-existent thing only appears to be existing when you're identified as it. Because it's your existence it's living off of, in a sense, yeah? Because it's non-existing. So you don't have to kill it because it never was so. You don't have to go back to make sure it's dead because it was never alive. It's non-existing, yeah? It's the existence we are, taking ourselves to be that makes sense to find a salvation for it. Yeah? Because it sure seems like it needs a lot of help, doesn't it? And there's no problem getting help, but the salvation isn't going to fit that bill, because the only salvation is realizing you're not the non-existent thing, and therefore it's not even salvation, that's the basic state. Yeah? For you to have salvation, you would have to have been bound, and you've never been bound. Bondage is of self. Without self, there is no bondage. So the freedom is prior to the bondage, not after. Here in this play, it's after. Therefore, you get free from some bondage, and a lot of times, the way you got free from the bondage becomes the new bondage. Yeah? You're now in a temple for 20 years and the hierarchy and all the infighting, and you're like, what the fuck? That's what I didn't think I was getting into. Yeah? But this is prior to it. Yeah? Prior. It doesn't have an opposite. There's just freedom, not freedom, bondage, freedom. It's just freedom. But it's prior. So if you see the problem, you see it as an activity, really. And then you see you have a huge role in it. Without your compliance, it can't really take off. Yeah? It doesn't have, and if you feel like it has momentum and you don't feed it, in time it will lose momentum. It is going to peter out. Yeah? So from the solution, there is no problem, in a sense. It's an activity by the solution, really. It's believing something. Yeah. From the problem, you need a solution, badly. But from the solution, it tells you there is no problem. So therefore, there's no need for a solution. That's a damn good solution. Because you can lose a solution, probably. Where did I place that solution? But you can't lose what you are, which is fantastic, huh? Yeah. I mean, I'm a junkie, in a sense, out there. I'm very pragmatic. I'm not going to shoot shit that doesn't have any heroin in it or cocaine. I want to get a hit. Yeah? This really translates where you most need freedom, which is in the action figure world. You don't need freedom in what you are, it's completely there. It's where it can seem not to be so, it's a good idea to entertain it. Yeah. Because the lightness isn't going to be, like Jesus says, we're in this world but not of it. I don't believe you're going to find the lightness in the world that you're looking for. You're going to be bringing it in from the ofness. Yeah? Yeah? Yeah. You're going to be the source of what you're looking for someone to be a source for. Or it doesn't work. Yeah.
Can you transmit a sense of that priorness here now?
Don't you feel something? There's us, it's not me, it's not you, it's mind, yeah. Do not mistake the message for the messenger. The messenger is not the message. It's just conveying a message, yeah? Yeah. This action figure has tons of blind spots and stuff like that. People, because we're anthropomorphic, we're self-centered, we think it's a thing that's speaking about no thing. It's just no thing speaking to no thing, really. Yeah. The only reason why I can show up at these talks is I never showed up at any talks. If I thought about giving talks, I would never come here. Never, ever. I would never have left California. Who would? Who wants to go to New Jersey? In March? No. Thinking paralyzes people completely. It fucking nudes them completely. We say in recovery, just suit up and show up and don't be in the outcome business. So to me, I just see, stay on the operating table, don't play doctor, don't get up, and things are going to go well. And it's proven to be so. The dream is getting happier. Yeah. And this gets to be, I'm telling you, it's like a hallelujah day when this isn't taken to be the center of the universe. It's way too much pressure to be everything as a body. Yeah, it really is. It's so much pressure for this to be the only thing you think about. It's way fucking too much. It's like in other places than Ireland, when the sun's out and it's dispersed, everyone's enjoying it. If you concentrated, it would incinerate someone. The mental state is taking an object and magnifying it all fucking day. The power of light is truly noticed in dispersal, not focusedness. This is like a relaxed awareness. It's unfocused. You're not looking for anything. You're seeing. Yeah, it's different. It's totally different. Yeah, it's very, very loosely held. Why would you hold something tight if it was always available at all times? You don't have to strangle it into submission. You are it. You are what you're looking for. Did those people lie? Did St. Francis lie by saying what's looking is what you're looking for? Was that a lie? These great masters come, they've warned us of some of the pitfalls, and this pitfall is the quickest one of all. The sense of self is going to arise with whatever you get in contact with and claim it. That's what it does, yeah? It doesn't have any respect for 5,000-year-old lineages. It doesn't give a fuck what you're doing. It's going to imply that you're the doer of it. That's what it does. If you don't notice it, you'll be looking from its effects. If you notice it, you'll see it, and it won't be able to create that sense of bondage to self. It's as simple as that. Yeah? It's basically that which comes after is applying its before, but you're before everything that's come after. You and I are the before of before. Nothing gets prior to what we are. Nothing is seeing the seeing. Yeah, so.
If you suffer something, if you suffer a lot physically, somebody comes along, gives you a whack in the head, somebody attacks you. It's a sure way to affect your equilibrium. If you've sort of reached a state where you're trying not to identify too much with the body, trying not to consider it too much. You're kind of on the way to realize that you're not all about the body. That you are your existence is there prior to all of this, that your spiritual existence, you're becoming more aware of yourself as spirit rather than physical. But when something brings you, something like a lot of physical pain can bring you really back down to.
Yeah, but see, what's identified with the body, I'm not trying to weaken that. I just see I'm not that which identifies with the body. There's going to be an identification with the body. That's what the mental process does. But it doesn't mean it's you doing it. That's where the freedom lies. Pain is pain. It's an experience. Suffering is when pain is stretched out into time. That's what happens with the mental state. It adds the ingredient of time in it. Something you just felt today would be bearable, but if you've been feeling it for months, it's unbearable. That's what the mental state does. The mental state uses the same instrument but plays totally different songs. And then you seem to have to dance to them. Pain happens. All of this happens. But then there's identification as self happening. But it's not you. So I do not work on trying to de-identify as a body. Never have, never will. Because that which takes itself to be the body will be doing the mantra that it's not a body. I found that goes nowhere. So I just see that I'm not that which identifies as a body, that's all. Yeah. Just works better for me. I've tried the other stuff. I was with the course and we used to chant this one lesson, I am not a body, I am free, I'm as exactly as God created me, something like that. And I knew the body was the problem, so I did it quite a lot. Yeah? Very religiously. But to me, in hindsight, it was the body saying it's not a body, which just makes more implying a body. You know what I mean? It's just insane. I mean, but it's going to work no matter what, because if mind intends it, it will work eventually. But I'd rather have, the speed up plan. Yeah.
They like the speed up plan. Well, I would like the speed up plan too. I've been listening to you for years since you were on board at the gap pump, and getting there and losing the train there. But yeah, I've been listening to you for years, and quite a few others, and chasing all the books and that. And I do travel light, or I'm very conscious, I know I travel light. But why am I still seeking myself?
Well, you're not seeking. If you if you try to stop seeking, that would be seeking, yes?
If I try to stop seeking, that would be seeking.
So you can't escape the seeker as the seeker. You have to see you're not the seeker. Yeah? You know what I mean? If you try to, let's say, there's a 2-year class of studying obsession with self. That could be obsession with self. You see? So like we have a statement in recovery called quit playing God. Very important statement, because that's what the mental state does. But all right, let's say the mental state that's playing God catches the advice, quit playing God. Wouldn't that be playing God? So now that which is playing God will try to quit playing God, which is playing God, just goes on and on and on. You can't get out if you're in. You have to see you're not in at the beginning, so there's no need to get out. That's the escape. You see?
I overlook what's going on in here.
Well, it's not even, there'll be an overlooking because you'll lose interest in it, because it's not about you. Really, the whole key why most of us are listening to this, we're listening to the same station, but in your view, let's say if your name was Ellen, it's called K Ellen. For me, it's K Paul, but it's the same station. But because we have a name on it, we're quite interested in it. If you heard K Stanley and you weren't Stanley, you turned it off in a minute. But you've been listening to K Ellen for 40 years because you think it's about Ellen. Seriously. It's all the same. All the differences is noun placements. Like you, Julie left you. For me, it's Amelia, but it's someone left me, yeah? Or I walk my dog Biff, I walk my dog Elmo. So you think it's different, but you walk the dog, you know? It's all the same downloads. But what's making it sound so interesting is we think it's about us, basically. In other words, the movie sucks, but the audience makes it good. I mean, we've been following Thoughts About Us for 40 years. We wouldn't follow anyone's, maybe your kids, but nothing other than that. Like Stanley, you wouldn't go back all day, oh, Stanley's life would have been so different if he would have turned left that day 5 years. You're not going to do that for anybody other than you, right? I mean, it's not interesting. So the interest isn't in the movie, it's from the audience. We think it's about us. So we're like, I used to do a thing about having a movie marquee outside, and it would be the movie of Paul. So, of course, a lot of Pauls go, hoping it's about them. And then some girlfriends who had boyfriends called Paul want to see that they were right, you know, for leaving Paul. So they get in the room. But I know it's only about this Paul. But they're all excited. There's a buzz in the air. They got popcorn and jujubes. And we're sitting in there. And then suddenly the movie starts. And there's me going, this could change my life, this call. Is it my fairy princess? This is the new job. And they, as soon as they see it's not about them, they want out. Yeah? They were so excited because they were hoping it was about them. As soon as they see it's not about them, they're fucking bored stiff. But I'm incredibly excited. That's exactly what happens in the head. When you see the thoughts aren't yours, you will lose interest in them because they're not that interesting. They're really not. They're the same old, same old.
But there's nothing to do to lose interest in them either, no?
Of course not. You just see that there's a seeing that they're not about you. That's not an effort. That's what you are. You're seeing. You're being aware. That's not an effort. That's your nature. Yeah? So you start not becoming, you are aware of that which you're not being implied, and it doesn't trigger the identification, and then you find out about what you are. Because you're not trying all day to keep finding out about what you aren't. You've seen what you're not, which is it's not you. And there's a loss of interest in it. That's the joy. If you try to move the interest, that would be interest. You can't do it. You cannot get out of you. Like we say in recovery, self can't get out of self. What's playing God can't play God to get out of playing God. But this way you lose interest in it. That's all. It just gets boring. Because it's really the same old, same old. It's a very limited loop. It's been playing for fucking years. It's had very little upgrade because there was none necessary. You follow it, it sucks completely and you follow it. So it's never had to upgrade the production because we're just like totally enamored with it. When you see it, it's really pretty. You know, when I went to England, I remember when I was a kid, there was a show that was in America from England called The Avengers. Really loved it. Yeah? And then as I got older, I saw it, and the production sucked. They were like cheap little cardboard fronts. It was like they spent maybe $100 to make the fucking thing. But you're a kid, you think it's great. But it was terribly produced for show. This is what happens. Was the show really? No, it sucked. They spent very little money. I mean, really, there was paper house. You know, it was like the room you knew was in a room they were in. It was in a stage. But but then when you were a kid, you were believing everything. Oh, it was fucking great. And you see it now. Jesus Christ, it's terrible. Did it actually change? No, you did. Yeah? Yeah. This is all the invitation, you know. I believe in repetition because repetition is used sort of like as the poison. We try to use it as an antidote. Yeah? And you see, we're not talking to you, and it's because the mental state is very fast, the claiming. And so it's like that Buddha with 1,000 arms. Think about putting a mitt on each hand. Whatever message, like you're a lion, it catches everything. See, it's protecting the lion from ever hearing that it's a lion through the identification as the sheep. And it's catching everything. Once it hears the message as the sheep, it neuters it. Yeah? So we're just trying to throw. This is like spiritual sperm, basically. We're setting it out, thousands of talks. You've seen them doing talks constantly. thousands of shit with hopes that all you need is one of them to get through all the myths of the mental state and to hit the egg, and the egg will conceive of an idea. Hey, I may not be that. And as soon as it conceives that idea, the next idea is I can be free from it. And there you go. The job has been initiated. That which always is has been initiated. Yes. I've seen it. There's a strategy here. I've watched it over the years. Yeah. I have faith in it. Yeah.
Yeah, Paul, I want to say, what's receiving this message? I mean, the sense you're contained within the dream, right? This presence or whatever you are is outside, is it behind the camera, right?
Well, actually, the dream is appearing in it, the dreaming.
Okay,
yeah.
Yeah, fair enough. You're kind of in the dream, you're struggling to break out of the egg, which, as you say, doesn't work, right? You're trying to break out. Some teachers say keep trying to see this or something. You're saying once it's seen, but if the beyond is beyond and free, what sees?
Seeing.
Seeing.
Awareness is being aware.
Yeah.
What else could be?
But there's a sense of something like an awareness looking out of the eyes, and I think you were sort of saying perhaps that could be just another mental projection, or a sense of aliveness in the body, and trying to struggle to see through that, to see through this and this mind, and that in some way that would just shift, and clarity, which is always there, will be apparent.
Yeah.
So there's a sense of effort or a sense of doing. Otherwise, you're sitting there saying, right, not you, but one sits there and says, okay, I'm in this dream, I'm sort of feeling a bit looser, but I'm still not, you know.
Well, that's again, there's an act of being identified as the dreamt it.
Yeah, there's a sense of it. It's not true. I hear what you say, it's not true, but the senses of being sort of.
It can be, but it's not.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be that way. You're having that sense, but that doesn't mean that's how it goes.
Listening to you now, there's a lot, that's hearing it, but this, you're trying to get through it or something. There's an inclination, I suppose, to make some.
Well, you can always ask that question, who's trying to get through?
Yeah.
If it isn't you, you lose interest in trying to get through. Because the only reason why you have interest, you don't have interest that everyone tries to get through, do you? You have interest that it's you trying to get through. Really? Seriously? Are you sitting here worried, concerned about everyone else trying to get through? No. There's no idea. It's all that. Just question that. That's all, if you need to. I mean, Ramana, I have a lot, I don't know him or anything, but there's a lot of respect I have. And he, confronted with the idea of silence, which was what we are, he see that wasn't working. So then he offered self-inquiry, which comes from the oldest scriptures in the world, the Vedas, which is to ask the subject, the false subject, who is it? So that if it ain't you, then you may not have to follow the dictates and the parameters of the false subject. Yeah? And when would you be able to do that? Immediately, as soon as you see that you're not the false subject. Yes, it wouldn't take any time. Yeah? And then here, in time, it can tease out and it will seem to get better, or you're getting further, or the apertures are opening up. But that's a beautiful, it's like, what would happen if all the flowers were always blooming? There's a real beauty in time, yeah, where you see like an orchid. You buy an orchid and nothing's opened up, and then you see the little thing forming. It's going to take months for it to bloom. It's really quite beautiful. That's all. It's like mind can play beautiful notes through time, and one of it is it's dreaming itself out of the dream. Yeah. And the dream will get happier. So you'll feel like you're cleaner, or clearer, or apertures more open. Those are just, that which is getting extended through time into that which it is becoming that which is. It's pretty cool in a lot of ways. Yeah?
There's a bit of relief in that.
It's a huge relief, because that which, see, if you're not that which needs to get liberated, there's a huge relief in that. Yes. Like I said, when you go, there's not another short breath taken. That becomes the new norm. Yeah, a big. It's like a story Ramana would say. There's a guy walking around with a big thing on his head. He arrives at the train station, gets on the train, and he's still holding the big thing. And a guy says, "Hey, listen, bro, you're on the train. You can put it down." That's sort of what it's like. Yeah, you put down. It's The train's gonna carry it now. He doesn't have to sit on the train. The train's carrying it, take it off, and both him and the bundle gets carried, yeah? That's sort of what it's like.
But can I ask just about when you say self-inquiry, like Ramana's take on self-inquiry was examine the thoughts, and it seems
No, not examine the thinker.
examine the thinking.
Yeah, he's always
thinking, yeah.
yeah.
That seems to be a process. You keep referring back to the perceiving quality until such time as you see through what's
Well,
going
you're
on.
using self to negate self.
But that sounds like a sort of a practice. You seem to teach it like that as a practice.
Oh, it is. It is a practice until it leads you to what is, and then you stop and you
But
rest.
it's not the dreamer that's carrying out the practice. It's the
Yeah, it's
mind.
negation. It's self-negating self. Yeah, he's using the self to negate self.
But you were saying earlier on, if I heard you correctly, that the dreamer can't dream himself out of existence, and you can't.
Of course not.
No,
Yeah.
but then if the dreamer is doing self-inquiry and putting attention back into the observer, the observing principle, and knocking the thoughts as they come up and saying, yes, it's just perceiving, is that not the dreamer attempting to break out and suddenly see, boom, I'm cleared, I'm not these thoughts? Is that not a practice?
Well, the idea of the dreamer may be thinking that's what's happening, but basically you're just bringing the dreamer back to source, or the dreaming back to source, where that's not happening.
But
So it may have a story, it's doing something, but when it arrives where it already is, it has nothing to do with that.
Here it's doing something, but it seems when in the scene of doing something, it can break the dream.
Well, the point is, it won't be there to say that.
Yeah, great.
Yeah? So that which is you're using to negate the self won't be there to say, oh, the self's been negated.
Yeah.
It's been negated.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah? And when it seems to happen, you have a realization it's always been that way. So
Yeah.
whatever you thought pantomime was going on, it wasn't going on. Yeah?
So practice of some type may take place, but
I'm not advocating it, but if there's that sense of being a someone, why not question if it's you? Yeah? But I don't advocate it.
Yeah, I understand.
Yeah. But I'm like throwing you a bone, basically.
Okay, thank you.
Because I like the Irish people. I'm having compassion. That's not good, actually, for the
Don't
message.
see your role for
I am, though. I'm being moved by a little bit of compassion, but now you've taught me a great lesson.
Well,
I'm just gonna keep giving you nothing. Sorry. Tried a little bite, fuck it. Didn't work. No. Yeah.
I haven't listened to you before, either in person or on the internet, and I've been in recovery for 30 years, and I was just wondering, I broke away from going to meetings because I didn't want to state my name, and I'm Maria, and I'm this,
Yeah. Yeah.
And so, but listening to you, I feel a lovely coming together of different elements that are helping me just lose all that baggage. But I was just wondering what your take on that was. Because I miss.
Well, if you have trouble, I've seen people come up with really good ways of not saying that. They can say, I'm a grateful member of AA. So they're not saying I'm an alcoholic. I don't care myself, personally. I don't care about what I say anyway.
Yeah, I think maybe I was putting too much.
I would say so, but that's my humble opinion.
I was coming here tonight and I went, I haven't been for years to the other meetings, and I went, that's where I want to go, really. I heard such wisdom from guys coming from the gutter, so to speak, and I went, why am I coming here? It always.
Well, now it's going to lead you to go back there, you see? That's love, honey. Really, it's love. That's what happens. You know how many people who have left AA have come to talks I do that weren't even directed at AA, and then they get a new spirit of AA? Yeah? Fuck, it's great. I'd love to be used that way, but it wasn't an intention. But that's what happens, yeah? Yeah. Yeah, and then, the mental state loves to cut your nose to spite your face, so you get stuck into words, and then you miss out on all that sense of belonging and stuff. Yeah, and also the possibility to be of service, which is a real important thing, in a sense, for the action figure. Certain action figures, for them that reach a set, like a level of enough, need to be of service. They just do, it's the nature, yeah? So that's why AA is so awesome for us types, because there's plenty of opportunity to be of service, yeah? You can be of service. See, if there's a presence, which there is, yeah, and you're that makes you available, being available, not efforting. And then when you're present and available, you're of service. It's an incredible level of beyond doing service. You become of service. So you're like on call. Like you're not in the back of your house when the doorbell rings. You're right there, you know. And you never get gypped, ever. You're just constantly present, so you never go, oh, I wish I would have done, none of that ever finds any traction. Oh, I wish I had none of that. You just see, it's just been totally okay how it's going. It's like you want to have one more story? This is a good one, I think. I used to have this one about Heaven's Door. This is old, you may have heard this one. It's from the old talk. So there's Heaven's Door, and a guy wants to go to heaven, obviously. So he goes and knocks on Heaven's door, and the door opens immediately, which is a little disconcerting, you know. Like God should have been somewhere else, maybe. But God's right there, and he goes, looks at it, he says, God, can I come in? And God looks right at him and says, Paul can't come in. So then he walks away, and he's determined to get better and do more stuff. And he gets a good resume. He goes to India a couple times, some retreats here, there, you know? So all right, he knocks on the door. And the door again, it's like fucking God's right there. And he goes, God, can I come in? And God looks right at him and goes, Paul can't come in. So then he gets pissed. And he starts drinking, and he's fucking fornicating like this. And he's out one night, and he falls in this river, and he hits his head, and he gets washed down the river, and he comes up on a shore that's right next to Heaven's Door. And as he's coming up, something happens to him. He knocks on the door, and there he is. God's right there again. He goes, God, can I come in? And God says, Paul can't come in, and he walks right in. Yeah. Now, God wasn't saying personally Paul can't come in. He was just stating a fact. Paul, Steve, Mary, Jim can't come in. Anybody identified cannot enter the kingdom of heaven. So his exile was of his own making. God was just stating a fact. He could have walked in at the first knock. But instead, then something happened. He realized, and then he walked right in. That's what's happening here. Exactly what it's like. You're the gatekeeper. Like they say in Zen, it's a gateless gate. You're the gatekeeper. This is an open secret. Obviously, how could it be a secret if it's open? It's always available at all times, right where you are. You just don't think so. And you believe in the thoughts, so the thoughts seem to be so. When you lose interest in the thoughts will not define you, nor will they define invitations, nor will they define possibilities. You'll be open to another modality of mind downloading, and you'll be led by a much better GPS, like we say in recovery. Perhaps there's a better way. You know, Recovery is an awesome freaking book. I mean, it's incredible. I rank it up there with a lot of those I am that and stuff, really. It has a statement in the fear inventory, when we're going to look at fears in our life. It says, why are you in so much fear today? And it doesn't let you answer. It says, isn't it because self-reliance has failed you? So the cause of fear is self-reliance. And self-reliance, what is the highest form of self-reliance? Being identified as a self. So self-reliance is the petri dish where fear grows. Fear is not just a cause, it's an effect, and it's the effect is self-reliance, yeah? Where was I going? I don't know, I just lost it there. Doesn't matter. Oh, a great book. So you see that, yeah? So it says, hey, perhaps there's a better way. What's the better way? Trusting something instead of trusting something finite, trusting something infinite. So instead of trusting finite self, which is the machinations of the mental state, we'll trust something infinite. And then you'll see the dream gets happier as you're getting moved from one failed system to a workable system as the action figure. What else is expressing here? You don't get in. allness isn't trying to get allness. Allness has value where it seems not to be so. This is the place where truth has value, where it can be seemingly forgotten. There's no need to know the truth as truth. But here, in the idea that we're in this place where we have our own truths, then that distruth is incredibly valuable, because really the peace we're looking for is of what we are not in where we think we are. Yeah, it's as Jesus says, we're in this world, but we're not of this world. The ofness is what we're looking for. Yeah? And the beautiful thing is, that is what's looking. We are the ofness. Yeah. So that's it, I think, for tonight, eh?
Excuse me, may I ask,
Oh.
what did he mean when he said, they are in me, but I am not in them?
You'd have to ask him. I don't know. All right, we're going to end, eh? Yes, that's all right. I hope I see you tomorrow.